Hello everyone, you're watching Can You See Fish, and welcome back to the return of this channel. It's been, how many months has it been? It's been about 5 months, 4 or 5 months since I last uploaded. I thought that for my return to YouTube, I would do one of easily the most requested videos I've ever got, and that is to do the Dissecting Sodor edition on the Skarloey Railway, obviously the main narrow gauge railway on the island of Sodor. So this has been a long time coming. In the last video I did, which I think was just basically finishing up with like the Ulfstead line and the Northwestern Railway, I said that the next one was going to be Skarloey Railway. So here it is. So we're using the Sam Wilkinson 2014 map, of course, as we always do. And on this map, all of the narrow gauge Skarloey Railway is marked with this black and red kind of striped pattern. So we're going to start at Crowans Gate, of course, the main area, and then we'll go up the main line, and then once we've done that, we'll go to the Vickerstown branch, the Mountain branch, and then finish off with the branch to the wharf. So we start at Crowans Gate. This is obviously the main station on the Skarloey Railway. This is the transfer point for passengers between the Northwestern and the Skarloey Railway. There's the station here, there are the engine sheds here, and yeah, it's kind of a kind of busy, bustling area, also served by the Northwestern Main Line. And in the railway series especially, this is where the Crowans Gate Slate Company and the wharf for the transfer of slate is located. Moving up, we have the stone bridge that passes over the narrow gauge line, which I think is seen in Don't Bother Victor, and just past that is the washdown yard and the village town square, both new series locations I believe, particularly the village square seen in Wash Behind Your Buffers, and I think Duncan Does It All, kind of as a kind of market town thing, not really made apparent as to whether it's Crowans Gate Town Square or Crosney Kern Town Square, but that's where that is. Just past there we have this section here, which I'm guessing is where the retaining wall is located, that is seen in Rock and Roll, in that kind of area where Duncan comes off the track in Rock and Roll. And past that we have Crosney Kern, the second major station on the line. This is only seen in Series 4, I believe, although it is mentioned in one of the Series 18 Duncan episodes. And that's the station, like in You Can't Win, where Duke's having his pipes cleaned. That's that station. And I think it's also seen in maybe Special Funnel with Rusty going past it. Past that is the Rowans, which is a pretty little known, I would say, location. A lot of people might not know what this is. The Rowans is something that I think is specifically from the kind of expanded universe that Audrey did with the iOS book. And this is the house or the residence of Sir Handel Brown, who in the Railway series is the owner of the Skarloey Railway. He's not the controller. The controller is still the thing controller, Mr. Peter Sam, but he is the owner, Sir Handel Brown. Past that we have Skarloey Orchard. This is seen in A Smooth Ride from Series 10, and is where obviously one of the main memorable parts of that episode is Sir Handel bouncing around and damaging the apples. This is where those apples come from, of course. And then we go up the line a bit more until we get to the depot and the Thing Controller's house, another part where the standard gauge and narrow gauge lines converge. Obviously, in this case, it's the I think that's the Bluebell branch line. I think the Bluebell branch line going up past that. Obviously, this is where the Thing Controller's house is located, and the depot is something I think it was introduced in Series 6, and then it reappears as kind of the main hub in Series 7 for the narrow gauge engines, and then obviously going on from the in the new series, it's then the depot, the transfer yards, and the wharf as well. So you get kind of a few major locations in the hit model era. Going further up, the line then runs directly adjacent with the standard gauge line to get to the Hillside Mill, which I believe is seen in the Man in the Hills episode in Series 12, although I'm not really sure. And further up from that we get to Bluebell Valley. This is the main station on Stepney's branch line other than Great Waterton. And this is the part of the line where Rusty likes travelling in the spring, and you see this station. Rusty's normally the one out. I don't know if we actually ever see any other engines there. You might see Skarloey at the end of Rusty to the Rescue, but that's Bluebell Valley. Not really where I would want to put this, to be honest. I get that you have to have the Skarloey and the standard gauge running side by side, but having Bluebell Valley kind of just plonked in here doesn't make much sense to me, and it's something that I would probably change on my map if I ever made one, which I don't think I will, because it's way too much effort. So that's Bluebell Valley and the Bluebell Valley Station. Past that, we get to the Mountainside Runby. This is the kind of forest area seen in Series 4, and also the Valley View, which is the kind of picnic area, very picturesque, near a lake, which is shown here on the map. You've got a couple of different kind of bodies of water around this area. So that's Woodland Way and the Valley View as well. So Woodland Way, obviously the forest track, Valley View, that kind of area there. You've then got the Whispering Waterfall, which is seen in predominantly Series 7. I think it might be seen in some of the Hit Era episodes. This one's seen in Rheneas and the Roller Coaster, and Peter Sam and the Refreshment Lady to... oh no, not Peter Sam. The Refreshment Lady's Tea Shop, sorry, to name a few. Past the picnic area, we get to Glenoc. Obviously, this is kind of the small wooden station seen in Series 4, and also making its return in Series 18 in the CGI era. Very small station. I don't think there's really any major events that happen here. It's kind of just that singular shot that you always get of this kind of looking up past the gate down into the valley where the station is, with one of the engines running past. It's a really iconic location, even though I don't think anything actually really happens there. And from there you get the 2-track narrow gauge junction, which basically, for me, looking at the map, this basically only serves to be able to include the two-track kind of standard gauge narrow gauge tunnel that's seen in Snow and a couple of other episodes as well, like Thomas and the Rumours. But you also have Hewin Dewey here, which is kind of the castle causeway with... It's later called Sodor Castle, but Hewin Dewey Castle is what I personally call it. On the map it's marked up as Hewin Dewey. That's a common kind of mistake on a lot of the different maps, not just the Sam Wilkinson map, is that Hewin Dewey is called Hewin Dewey for some reason. I think it's from one of the Edwards maps or something, I can't remember. And but now there's then another track leading round, and this is where I think quite a few of the locations from Rusty Saves the Day, is it called, the Series 6 episode, the really boring Series 6 episode, I think that's where that is. And you've also got the crossing over of the river here, which I believe is Rheneas Bridge, that is seen in Special Funnel, the bridge that Peter Sam goes through before you get to Rheneas Tunnel, which is seen in a couple of episodes. There's also the junction in between these two places for the Vickerstown branch line, something that I know a lot of people really hate about this map and just the TV series in general, making it so that Rusty goes all the way to Vickerstown, or even the mainland in depending on how you interpret the lines about going to the other railway. But then you get Rheneas Tunnel, which is where Peter Sam knocks his funnel off, and past that is the ever wonderful Viaduct, Rheneas Viaduct, seen in, I think, almost every series that the narrow gauge engines appear in, if I'm not mistaken. But I'd imagine that, considering what an iconic and picturesque location that is, it probably does still appear. After that you get to Rheneas Station, probably my favourite station on the whole of the Skarloey Railway. I love Rheneas Station. You obviously have the double berth engine sheds here, and most prominently the watermill, which is just an absolutely wonderful just set piece. I absolutely love it. And then you have the loop round, so we'll go round the loop this way to Lakeside, which is kind of in the TV series. It's not really a lakeside, it's more of a kind of bustling harbour town, and it's a cool location. It doesn't really make much sense for it to be like in the smack middle of the island and like at the one of the most north points of the railway, but it is a very cool location. And obviously, yeah, you get the junction there, and it does say Quarry siding, which I believe is to do with the Slate Quarry, which we'll get to later. But continuing round that loop and past that, you get to Daisy Holt, which is seen in, once again, Don't Bother Victor, I believe. And you also get Hill Farm here, which is seen in Skarloey Storms through a couple of different kind of almost really forgettable locations, one-offs I would call them. It's worth noting that also on here I think we can see the Funicular Tramway or Funicular Railway, before we get to Skarloey station just here, and the cutting to the incline and slate yard, and there's also one to the Echo Pass ravine, a different line here. So this is kind of where the Skarloey Railway is one of the worst things on the Sam Wilkinson map, I'm going to say. Like, I think that the stuff that he did with adding the extra loop line in, perfectly fine, to include some of those new series CGI locations, you know, and including some of the Railway series stuff, but this is just absolutely horrendous. The amount of different tracks coming off here. You've got a disused one up here to the lake, you've got one here to the incline yard, you've got another one that seemingly just goes nowhere, but if you do look at the old tracks, this is where the you get to the Crowans Gate Mining Company, the old Ward Fell copper mines, I believe. But yeah, so Skarloey Station is the original end of the line. Obviously, Lakeside, I think, opens up in the 1970s in the Railway series. I might be wrong. Oh, no, 60s, I think. Opens up in the 60s. And Skarloey is the original end, and that's kind of the double platform station that's seen only in Series 4, really. So, that, and also around this area, you also, quite confusingly, get a couple of, like, the dead end. I guess that this is meant to be like the dead end section from Mighty Mac, where there's the dead end mountain, which would explain why the campsite's just here, also seen in Mighty Mac. And the last thing is the old iron bridge from Duncan Gets Spooked. So yeah, you can tell like just what a mess this all is. Thankfully, the really kind of controversial extra branch lines that are added onto it are a lot easier to kind of navigate and tell you what's on, because they don't throw as much stuff on there. We'll start off on the Glenoc branch line, which is the one that goes to Vicarstown. So leaving the junction here, you get to the coal yard and incline, which I think is seen in Skarloey the Brave. You then get to the Green Hills Junction and the Man in the Hills, which is in, believe it or not, the Man in the Hills from Series 12. That's actually a kind of nice and underused set. Past that, you get to the Old Trestle Bridge, which is the old bridge from the episode The Old Bridge in Series 7, obviously the one where Skarloey nearly dies, and then gets PTSD. Past that, you get to Cooldy Fell Hill, and so this is something that's basically been put on here purely because in the TV series there's kind of a mistake in Series 9 where some of the locations are referred to as Cooldy Fell and the Cooldy Caves. Now obviously the Cooldy Fell is a mountain over on this side of the island over here, just past Shenven and Shane Dooney. There's the big mountain is called Cooldy Fell. So you've got Cooldy Fell Hill and the Cooldy Caves where Duncan gets lost in Duncan and the Old Mine, I believe it is. But yeah, I just find it funny that that's kind of been added here because it really makes no sense at all. Past that, you get Percival Pond, which is where Skarloey crashes in possibly the worst episode of the show, Push Me Pull You. Horrendous. And past that, you get to the middle station, which is introduced in, I think it's introduced in Series 9, I want to say. It might be in 7, but it's just one of those throwaway stations. Nothing really happens there. And then you get this massive stretch here with nothing on it before you get to the goods depot at Vicarstown. And this is the problem with Rusty to the Rescue. As a story, I think it's a great story. It's really exciting. It's thoroughly interesting. But the fact that it means that you have to have this massive line coming off from the Skarloey Railway is really, really dumb. I absolutely hate the way that looks. But it's canon. I mean, you can't really have Vicarstown or just that kind of area anywhere else. So it's got to be canon, but yeah, I hate that. Absolutely despise it, in fact. So that's the Glenoc branch line, but I would probably call it the Vicarstown branch. Going back down to Crowans Gate, we've now got the Crowans Gate branch line to the wharf. Probably the smallest branch, not much really happens on this one. There's the Sodor Steamworks, obviously where Victor and Kevin work, also has the standard gauge access for that. And then it splits off, or no it doesn't, it actually continues to follow it along to the transfer yards, seen in Series 9, Series 10, 11, and I think 12 as well. It's a really major location. And you then go through the woodland track to the wharf. And the wharf is such a cool location, really industrial looking. Obviously, Colin is located here, and that's kind of another big, kind of bustling area. Okay, so the last part of the line is another pretty dumb one, and which only exists really to connect the line to Ulfstead Castle, because as we see in episodes like The Switch, it's the narrow gauge line does go. The Skarloey Railway connects with the kind of dinosaur park and Ulfstead Castle loop, if you will, at Ulfstead. So going from the junction at Lakeside, which is actually the way that it splits off, I guess that does kind of make sense. You go up the Rocky Ridge line seen in Series 7, and then again in Series 10's Fearless Freddy, I believe. But yeah, then you get the tea room station seen in Series 7, especially in the Refreshment Lady's tea shop. And then you have kind of this open space before you get to the Mountain Village, which is seen in Series 9, I think. I couldn't tell you which. And it's seen in Series 10 and 11 too, isn't it? It's the village that Duncan is delivering the coal to in Duncan's Bluff. There you go. Past that, you get to the Blue Mountain Quarry, obviously, another pretty much the hub for the CGI narrow gauge engines. Obviously, Owen works here, Merrick works here, Luke predominantly works here, alongside all the other narrow gauge engines. I like it as a location. I think it's cool. I wish it wasn't like the only place that we see in CGI, though. I think that does make it somewhat worse. Past that, we get to Strawberry Grove, which is where Duncan is taking the headmaster's organ to in Faulty Whistles in Series 6, the final episode. And then you have another bit of open track here before you get to Rumbling Bridge, which is the new station, which is opening in Series 7. Yeah, in the grand opening, you get to Rumbling Bridge. Sometimes I think it's misspelt as Rambling Bridge, but no, it is Rumbling Bridge. That's kind of... And it's never seen after that, which is a shame, because it's a really nice station. But it does make sense for it to be in this part of the line, because it is kind of in that mountainous, rocky area. Past that, you get to the event showground and Proteus statue that is seen in Mountain Marvel, my favourite episode from Series 12. We then get to Elephant Park, obviously another new station that's opened up in Series 7. You then get the Rocky Way, another location from Fearless Freddy, I think. And then the line splits off into two in this really unnatural way. Like, this looks absolutely horrendous. Could you really not have, like, curved the track to make it look a bit more normal? Where one side takes you to the Boulder Quarry, obviously disused after the disaster that happened there, where the boulder rolled along the entirety of the track down to the stone cutting yards. Yeah, not an episode that makes a lot of sense from a realistic standpoint. And you then get past that, the old rickety wooden bridge, as seen in Trusty Rusty, that obviously falls down. And then you get the craggy track, another part from Fearless Freddy, before you get to the Earl's Estate and the Ulfstead Castle. So yeah, and that is the whole Skarloey Railway. Just an absolute mess on this map, I'm going to be completely honest. And this is why you can't really do Railway Series, CGI and Model Era all in one map, especially with the Skarloey Railway, because it changes in almost every series. In Series 4, it's very similar to the Railway series. Series 5, they had stuff like the Boulder Quarry onto it, while still kind of keeping the viaduct and some of the stuff like that. Series 6, you get a lot of new locations. Strawberry Grove, obviously the depot kind of now becoming the main hub instead of Croven's Gate, which never appears in the model era after Series 4, I don't think. I think it's then doesn't appear until like Series 18 in CGI. And then Series 7, you get a load of new locations. Elephant Park, the rickety old bridge, the Trestle Bridge. It's just... And then in Series 8 onwards, they just do whatever the hell they want with adding stuff like the wharf. So it's a real cluster of just things on the Sam Wilkinson map. And yeah, to be honest, this is one of the things that when people are criticising this map, I can't justify having it be so messy. It is absolutely horrendous to try and navigate this thing. But that's Dissecting Sodor. Hopefully this is going to be my kind of return to uploading semi-regularly. Probably not, maybe like once every 2 weeks I'm hoping for. Maybe once a week in some occasions, but... So yeah, that's Dissecting Sodor. If you have enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, goodbye.